I've never been one to ignore unfairness, especially when it comes to animals. Where I grew up, stray animals were everywhere, and I saw both genuine kindness and outright madness from so-called activists. I love animals, but some people act like they have the right to control everyone else. My best friend and I have been animal lovers since childhood. She rescued her beautiful black Maine Coon mix from a drainage ditch as a kitten 5 years ago. That cat became her world, properly vaccinated, spayed, well fed, and spoiled with toys and affection. The cat even had a custom collar with her name engraved on a little tag. The trouble started when my friend installed a new mesh screen on her balcony so her cat could enjoy fresh air without escaping. Unfortunately, the screen hadn't been secured properly, and her clever cat managed to find a loose section and slipped out. My friend was devastated. She put up posters everywhere, posted in all local social media groups, and spent days walking through neighborhoods calling for her cat. 2 agonizing weeks passed with no sign of her beloved pet. Then, a breakthrough, someone messaged her saying they'd seen her cat's photo posted in an adoption group run by a local organization of self-proclaimed animal activists. These people had appointed themselves as a neighborhood animal police despite having no legal authority. They were notorious for their holier-than-thou attitude on social media, constantly posting about the struggles of being animal parents and rescuers while vilifying regular pet owners. My friend immediately contacted them. She politely explained that she had spotted her missing cat on their adoption page and offered to provide vet records and photos as proof of ownership. The activist coldly replied that any cat found outdoors was considered a stray and accused my friend of being negligent. My friend desperately tried to explain that her cat had escaped through a damaged screen and that she'd been searching for weeks, but the activist insisted that a responsible owner would never allow their cat to escape in the first place. They told her the cat would be safer with them and would be placed in what they considered a proper home. Then they simply blocked her without further discussion. My friend called the police, but they were useless as usual. Animal disputes weren't high on their priority list, and the case would likely drag on for months or be forgotten entirely. Seeing her heart break, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Looking at the adoption posts, I noticed that my friend's cat was being kept alongside a one-eyed cat that the group was also trying to rehome. I hatched a plan. I created a new account and contacted the organization expressing interest in adopting the one-eyed cat. They were thrilled. Apparently, cats with disabilities were harder to place. For 2 days, I exchanged detailed messages with them about the cat's medical needs, personality, my home environment, and financial ability to care for a special needs pet. I pretended to be the perfect adopter. The activist expressed great happiness that someone was interested in the one-eyed cat, mentioning that most potential adopters overlooked her because of her disability. I responded by saying I actually preferred special needs cats because they have so much love to give despite being frequently overlooked. The activist enthusiastically agreed with my sentiment and asked if I would like to meet the cat that weekend. I eagerly replied that I'd like to meet her as soon as possible. They eventually gave me the address of the foster home where both cats were being kept. When I arrived, the foster person seemed genuinely nice, just misguided by the organization's extreme policies. She showed me to a room where both cats were kept in separate cages next to each other. The foster person told me she would give me some time alone with the one-eyed cat to see if we bonded, and that I should call if I needed anything. The moment she left, I quickly opened my friend's cat's cage, scooped her up, put her in the carrier I'd brought, and left without another word. I felt bad for the one-eyed cat and for misleading the foster person, but my priority was rescuing my friend's stolen pet. My friend was overjoyed when I showed up with her cat. The reunion was tearful. Her cat immediately started purring and kneading her chest. All was well, or so we thought. The next day, the organization posted a dramatic story online claiming that an evil fat woman had stolen a rescued cat that they had saved from abuse. They even claimed they had microchipped the cat, which wasn't true before. The cat only had a collar, and were demanding we return the cat and pay a microchip fee. Later, their story evolved further. They started claiming the cat was an illegal breeding cat who was scheduled to be spayed before being stolen. This was completely absurd. My friend's cat had been spayed years ago and had the scar to prove it. By this point, their followers were threatening to fine me and make me pay, but we had enough. My friend gathered years of photos documenting her cat's life, from kitten pictures to post-surgery recovery photos showing the spay scar. We created our own post explaining the whole situation and shared it across local groups. Other pet owners who'd had run-ins with this organization began sharing their own experiences. The tide of public opinion quickly turned. People were outraged that this organization was essentially stealing people's pets and making up lies to justify it. Their social media accounts were flooded with comments questioning their practices and ethics. The organization's response was predictable. Instead of acknowledging their mistakes, they posted about how they were being harassed for trying to save animals. They complained that everyone was being mean to them when they were just trying to make the world better. The one-eyed cat I had initially expressed interest in found a genuine forever home amid all this drama. I saw updates from her new family showing her thriving and happy. My friend's cat is back where she belongs. The entitled organization's reputation is in tatters, and a special needs cat found a loving home. My wife and I had spent nearly 2 years saving for this cruise. With my job in insurance and her work as a teacher, we rarely get the chance to fully unwind. So when we finally stepped onto that massive ship, packed with buffets and nightly shows, we were ready to make the most of it. We'd spent 4 glorious days at sea when we finally docked at our first port of call. I was excited to explore the local markets and maybe pick up some souvenirs for our kids back home with the grandparents. The ship had announced our arrival early that morning and everyone was eager to disembark and start their day of adventure. My wife and I got ready, had a quick breakfast, and made our way to the exit point where a line had already formed. No problem. We were in no rush. The weather was perfect, and we had the whole day ahead of us. We had been waiting patiently for about 15 minutes when I noticed some commotion a few people behind us. Someone was pushing their way forward, and I could hear muttered complaints from other passengers. That's when I saw her, a woman, aggressively maneuvering a stroller through the crowd. She was nudging people aside without so much as an "excuse me" or "sorry," acting as if the rules of common courtesy didn't apply to her. I nudged my wife and whispered that she should look at that witch, commenting that the woman clearly thought she was too good to stand in line with the rest of us. Unfortunately, I hadn't been as quiet as I thought. The woman whipped around, fixing me with a nasty glare. She angrily told me that she was in a hurry and needed to leave the ship quickly because her child needed fresh air. She didn't wait for a response before continuing her path of destruction through the line. My wife squeezed my hand, silently telling me to let it go. She was right. We weren't going to let one entitled person ruin our vacation. When we finally reached the security processing point to exit the ship, we spotted the woman again. Karma had already begun its work. She was stuck behind a group of elderly passengers who had somehow misplaced their identification cards. The security staff was patiently helping them, but the process was taking forever. The woman was tapping her foot impatiently, sighing dramatically every few seconds, and checking her watch as if she had an important appointment to keep. My wife and I exchanged knowing looks and moved to another line that had just opened up. As we passed by her, I couldn't resist commenting loudly enough for her to hear. I said to my wife that we were lucky we didn't make the mistake of getting into that other line, adding that some people just don't know how to plan ahead. My wife gave me a playful swat on the arm, but I could tell she was enjoying this small moment of vindication as much as I was. We exited the ship and made our way down the long pier toward the customs checkpoint. The sun was bright, and the sea breeze felt amazing after days in air-conditioned spaces. We were almost at customs when I heard the familiar sound of a stroller being pushed too aggressively. Somehow the woman had caught up with us, and true to form, instead of joining the main line for customs, she veered toward the lane marked for disabled persons and elderly passengers. But karma wasn't finished with her yet. Today, the customs agents had brought drug-sniffing dogs to check for prohibited items. Within seconds of her arrival, one of the dogs sat down right next to her stroller, alerting its handler. The customs agents approached her immediately. The agent told her that they needed to check her belongings because their canine unit had indicated she might be carrying prohibited items. The woman protested loudly, saying this was ridiculous and that they were just trying to enjoy their vacation. She accused them of targeting her because she had a child. The agent remained professional as they searched her bag, quickly finding what had triggered the alert: bananas and grapes, clearly taken from the ship's buffet. The customs agent explained to her that there were multiple announcements on the ship about not bringing fruits or vegetables into port, and that these items were prohibited due to agricultural regulations. The woman argued back that those were just snacks for her child. She demanded to know what she was supposed to feed him while they were out and called their rules absurd. My wife and I presented our documents and passed through customs without any issues. When we walked toward the shopping area, I could still hear the woman's voice rising in pitch and volume. The customs agent was trying to be understanding, saying that they understood her frustration, but explaining that these regulations exist to protect local agriculture from potential pests and diseases. The woman was clearly outraged, asking if she looked like she was carrying diseases and demanding to speak to a supervisor immediately. We browsed through several shops, picking up a few trinkets and enjoying the local atmosphere. About 20 minutes later, I looked back toward the customs checkpoint out of curiosity. The entitled woman was still there, now visibly yelling at what appeared to be a senior customs official while her child cried in the stroller. I never found out exactly what happened to her after that. Part of me hopes she was arrested for her behavior, or at least sent back to the ship for the remainder of our stop. My wife and I enjoyed a wonderful day in port, had a delicious local lunch, and returned to the ship with plenty of time to relax before dinner. I'd never been more excited than when my parents surprised me with a trip to Yuma, Arizona last Sunday for my birthday. They were being super mysterious about it, not telling me anything about why we were going. Turns out, they were taking me to get my first truck. It wasn't anything fancy, just a used pickup with a camper shell that made it look kinda like an SUV. But it was mine, and I was over the moon. Fast forward to Wednesday. I was outside in our driveway, changing the oil on my new Pride and Joy. The previous owner had taken decent care of it, but I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. That's when I heard it, the metallic rattling of our front gate being shaken aggressively. I looked up to see a woman violently rattling our gate trying to get in. I called out to her, informing her that she was on private property and needed to stop. She paused her shaking for a moment and asked if I owned the SUV-looking vehicle. I confirmed that I did. She immediately asked if I was selling it, to which I politely declined while thanking her for her interest. The woman then abruptly offered me $700 for my truck. Confused, I asked her to clarify what she meant. She repeated her offer of $700. I reminded her that I had already declined to sell my vehicle. She began pleading with me, claiming that her son needed it, while pointing to a young boy beside her who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. At this point, my patience was wearing thin. The oil change wasn't going well. I'd already stripped one bolt and gotten oil all over my favorite shoes. I asked her one more time to leave my property. That's when things escalated dramatically. The woman hurled a racial slur at me related to my Italian heritage, which was obvious from my appearance. I lost my temper and responded with an insult, calling her a short witch, though my actual language was less polite. She repeated her slur and told me to go back to Italy while shaking the gate even more violently. I walked back toward the garage to get my baseball bat and call the police. I wasn't planning to use the bat. I just wanted something to keep her at a distance if she managed to break in. When I walked away, she intensified her assault on the gate. When I returned with the bat in one hand and my phone in the other, already dialing 911, I threatened her with an Italian reference to Salieri, suggesting I would take drastic action if she didn't leave immediately. Upon seeing the bat, the woman switched tactics and threatened to call the police on me. I told her that I had already called them myself, pointing down the street where a police cruiser was conveniently pulling up. As an officer stepped out and approached us, the woman immediately accused me of stealing her SUV and refusing to return it. I denied her accusation. The officer attempted to de-escalate the situation, explaining that he would speak with me first and then talk to the woman afterward. Both of us agreed to this arrangement. While the officer walked toward me, the woman tried to enter my driveway. The officer instructed her to stay where she was. She demanded to know why she should remain in place, repeating her false claim about me stealing her vehicle. The officer warned her that he would have to detain her if she didn't comply. Reluctantly, she agreed to stay put. The officer quietly asked me if there were any security cameras on the property. I confirmed that there were, explaining that the previous homeowner had been paranoid and installed them everywhere. The officer requested to see the footage, and I agreed to show him. We went inside while his deputy stayed outside to monitor the woman and her child. When we reviewed the footage, which clearly showed the woman attempting to break onto my property and me defending myself, we heard a commotion outside. The deputy was shouting at the woman to stay back, followed by the distinctive sound of a taser being deployed. The officer and I both rushed outside to find the woman lying on the ground with a knife in her hand and taser prongs attached to her arm. The officer demanded to know what had happened, and the deputy explained that the woman had charged at him with a knife. The officer instructed the deputy to handcuff her. When she was being restrained, the woman protested that the arrest was illegal and that she knew her rights. The deputy sarcastically replied that if she knew her rights, then she should be aware of her right to remain silent. He then placed her in the police car, where her son was also sitting, looking surprisingly unfazed by the situation. The officer turned to me and asked if I wanted to press charges against the woman. After a moment's consideration, I declined, reasoning that she already faced serious repercussions for attacking a police officer. The officer wished me a good day before departing with the woman and her child. That was the last I saw of her. She's now facing 15 years for attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. As for me, I finished changing the oil on my truck and added some extra security to our gate. You never know when someone might decide your vehicle is worth exactly $700 and try to take it from you. Over the years, I've built up a big collection of video games and consoles. Recently, I decided it was time to let go of some, starting with my PlayStation 2. It was in great condition, but with all my newer consoles, I just wasn't using it anymore. About a month ago, I put an ad on a local second-hand selling website. I listed my PlayStation 2 with all the cables, controllers, and some games for a fair price. I got about 3 calls from interested buyers, but none of those sales went through. Then I got a call from this woman asking about the PlayStation. She asked how much I wanted for it. I told her $80 for the console, 2 controllers, and 5 games. She complained it was too expensive for such an old console. I explained it was actually a good price compared to other listings in the area. She reluctantly agreed to meet at the mall the next day. We met at the food court. I packed everything in a bag and arrived early. Soon a woman approached with a boy who looked about 10 years old. I asked if she was the person interested in the PlayStation. She confirmed. I reminded her that I wanted $80 for it. Without asking, she took my bag with everything out of my hands and showed it to her son. The boy touched the PlayStation and thanked his mom for the gift. The woman thanked me and started to walk away. I stood shocked before realizing what was happening. I told her she had forgotten to pay me. She acted surprised and claimed I had said in texts that I didn't need the console, implying I was giving it away. I told her I knew exactly what I had written and offered to show the texts as proof. Then I grabbed the bag back from her son. The woman screamed that I was stealing her bag. A mall security guard quickly approached us. The guard asked what was happening. I explained the situation. The guard asked for proof of our agreement. I showed him our texts and mentioned I had phone recordings. To prove she was the same person, I called her number, and her phone rang in her purse. The guard told the woman she needed to pay or return the item. She threw a tantrum, ranting about men being greedy and insisting she should have it for free or else. When I asked what she meant by or else, she threatened to call security. I pointed out there was already a guard right there who knew the story. I decided to walk away and find another buyer. The woman suddenly changed her tune and begged me to come back, offering to pay more than my asking price. Against my better judgment, I agreed to $90. She paid me, I gave her the PlayStation, and left. When I walked away, I overheard her son asking why she paid when she had said she found it for free. Later that night, she called complaining the PlayStation wasn't working. I tried troubleshooting, asking if she had turned on the switch and connected the cables correctly. She didn't know what video cables were and was angry it didn't have HDMI. I explained only newer PlayStation models have HDMI. She blamed me for not telling her this detail. She started another tantrum, so I hung up, blocked her number, and decided never to sell anything in person without payment first.